as well as private investor perspective, in both of your business as well as your investment.
Sure.
A lot of them are smaller or medium-sized companies, startups,
Mhm.
and many times you leverage the consultants as well as contractors
Yeah.
to support the business needs. Why did you make those decisions as opposed to hire employees and expand
Yeah,
operations?
very good question, Gong. Very good question. I think that it goes back to the notion of, I guess I'll call it cost control, but it's really not cost control. It's more or less aligned with your base of costs. Okay, so I think people think about when I hire somebody, my base of cost goes up. I'm paying a salary, I have benefits, I've got payroll taxes, I've got whatever technologies associated with that, and I got space. And we used to have space. Maybe we'll have space again in the future, but I've got to put them in an office. I might have furniture associated with that. I might have travel and other expenditures. So there's a level of cost that goes up. And it's not variable and it's not 100% fixed. So you can change that cost structure, but it's usually pretty painful. I mean, we're talking about letting people go. And some of the cost structure that increased, for example, that if you go through a massive hiring cycle and you take on more space, that space cost could be with you for a while. You might have a long-term lease, you might have built a building. So all of that is now embedded into the cost structure of your business. So you're a lot less nimble than what you think you are, right? So a portion is variable, but a portion is still fixed. So to maintain nimbleness while you're going through that rapid phase, oftentimes it's beneficial to use a contract person that you can come in and more quickly eliminate that cost, and you're not generally not going to have the same embedded costs associated with the business. We found that pretty true of Pure Team Bioscience, that as a very small company, I mean a very small company, especially early on, we didn't have the luxury to hire a whole lot of people. I mean, we just couldn't do it. Plus, truth be told, there just wasn't enough to do. Hence, I could hire an accounting person to do what I do, but the fact of the matter is it doesn't take me long. So why would we do that? Why would we burden the company with another person, another body, and all of that cost that goes with it? So we've hired contractors in a number of different roles, anything from sales consulting to R&D consulting, that oftentimes, and that kind of goes to the second part of answering the question, was that sometimes you need a very unique skill set for a period of time. Right? This isn't a permanent thing necessarily. I have a very unique skill set that I need for a duration, but that duration may not be very long term. And so it's oftentimes easier to go out and get that specialized person. Some would argue, well, you pay more for that, right? You pay more for it because the hourly rate is generally much higher than what you pay a person. I would say that's true, but I probably have a lot less training time. I have a lot less to be concerned about by way of fixed costs and what's going to happen longer term. And I got somebody that understands a lot of different businesses that I can glean other information off of them, right? I can learn things about my business based on the experience of other businesses. So I think that's where the independent consultant can be a huge business advisor for these people, not just because of their specialized expertise, but also because of their breadth of experience. So that's how I've sort of viewed it, that particularly while you're growing, my experience, companies can grow really fast, they can shrink really fast too. And so, to maintain a very nimble workforce as best as possible, even though it may cost you more in the short term, is often beneficial for the business long term.
Sure. So as I'm curious, Paul, from your perspective, giving advice to a functional manager in a large corporation, they're looking at my quote unquote cost to have a permanent employee versus a consultant where their hourly rate compared to what I'm internally costing is potentially double. How do you justify that on a numbers perspective?
Because rarely do you need them 100% of the time, right? Companies find with employees that as you're ramping up, because you're hiring a particular expertise for a project, once that project is over, you're looking for stuff for them to do, right? And so that's downtime, right? That's got to be embedded into, one of the things that many firms don't do, particularly with their employee base, is utilization. How well utilized are you? How much of your time is really spent doing productive things? That's something I learned in public accounting. We had utilization reports, right? It literally was your chargeable hours divided by the total hours, and how utilized were you, right? And so when you start looking at how am I deploying my dollars, that utilization is everything. And I don't know of many companies that really look at that hard and can classify it. So you can put a consultant on an engagement, and their every chargeable hour is going to be utilized hours, if you will, as opposed to there's no staff meetings, right? I don't have to go to HR training. I don't have to go to all these other things. So it's 100% utilized. So that's one way that you get at it. But I think it's really just that real fine area of expertise that if I need somebody, I know it's a short-term duration, I don't go through the staffing up costs, which is another aspect, right? That to hire an employee, think about the onboarding costs. How much time do you spend in interviews, organizational resources, through the interview process, the contracting process, all of that? It's generally much shorter for a contract employee. And many times, we have our own forms of contract that are pretty standard, pretty basic. And I found that with certain engagements, I'm up and running in a couple hours, and we get into it right away. So there's very little downtime. So that's the primary way that I look at it. But it's also, I don't want to undersell this notion of a very narrow expertise that you may be looking for a particular time period of time. Now, it could be that company will grow into a full-time position, right? That they'll say, hey, we've got many of these types of projects, that this skill set needs to be embedded in our organization. And ultimately, I would say that as a consultant, as an external consultant, that's kind of what you're looking for, right? You're helping the company. If you think about it, you're helping the company really shape the job that somebody's going to fill, that otherwise they may not completely conceptualize going in. And I guess that's another aspect that many times a company has an idea, I need a skill set, but if you made that a job, what would that look like? I'm not talking about saying, hey, I'm going to be a contract HR person. We know what that is, but this is a particular skill set. I think for things that you do, going, for example, in project management, it's so perfect. It's absolutely perfect, because very few companies can have the luxury of full-time project managers. They just don't have that much going on. And so to be able to get the skill set, a very desirable skill set of somebody that's in project management for a period of time, that they know how to manage a project, which in my experience, that's a unique skill, right? Being able to manage teams, being able to manage projects, keeping things on task, being the taskmaster, right? Having the difficult conversations is, really suited to an independent contractor, quite frankly. It really is. You don't have to get into the political nuances of anything. It's all about getting results, right? It's all about getting results for the organization.
Absolutely. That's great. That's very helpful, Paul. Exactly like you said, with my first contract through my independent consulting service, it was a project manager role with contract manufacturing in the medical device industry. I was able to basically complete all the regulatory related training within a week. And while doing those paper pushing work, I was ramping up with my program fairly rapidly, because it's basically very similar to what I'm used to doing.
Right.
And therefore the ramp up time is pretty minimum. And at the same time, I think, Paul, what you pointed out, the ancillary benefit of a veteran that you bring into your organization, not only it fits that bill for the day job, if you will, as that functional role, you also have some sort of coaching as well as teaching function on the side through your experiences and all the other qualification. Like a person like you described, you've done so many things where as you brought in to accomplish one thing, you could potentially teach the individual or the organization 20 different things while you're doing it.
No, that's exactly right.
Paul, I'm curious about your perspective on what kind of personality can be successful in the independent consulting world, and what kind of experiences does that take in that person's background in order to fit the bill from your perspective?
Yeah, yeah. So I'm just thinking of three different things right away, right? That generally speaking, it's probably somebody that's a little bit entrepreneurial. I like to say for myself that I get bored easily. And it's true, I get bored easily. And if I get bored, I tend to self-destruct, which is a really bad thing. So I'm sure you've heard this from me, but I'll say it anyway, that many people would, I would tell them, hey, I'm unemployable. And they say, well, what does that mean? So I can get a job, it's just going to end badly, right? I get bored too easily, so I need variety. So I think there's an entrepreneurial or that type of bent that helps with somebody in the space, that if you get bored easily, that there's always another engagement coming around that's going to be a little bit different. It may be the same thing. I mean, I've built countless financial models, and you know what? They're all the same, but the business is different. The people are different, and it's a whole new experience, and it's got different nuances that go with it. So I think that's one aspect. The other one I'll say is it's a bit of a risk taker. I don't want to overplay that, but a bit of a risk taker. When I've talked to some young people in the past who are just starting out their careers, one of the things I often tell them is always remember to try and keep yourself in a position to take risks. I'm not talking about gambling. I'm not talking about making huge investment bets, right? That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is managing your lifestyle so that you can do the things that other people can't, right? You can look at opportunities that other people can't because they need X amount, right? You see it all the time that people's households are locked into a certain expense level that I have to have this kind of income. And that forces you to eliminate a lot of potential decisions, right? It forces you to do that. If you don't have that situation where you can manage through it, you can take risks, you could try different things. Where there's risk, there is reward oftentimes. And that leads me to kind of the third thing. It's somebody that intrinsically gets value out of helping people, but also says that I need the richness of life, right? I want more than a job. I really do. I want more than a job. I want to feel good about what I do. And I don't always want to be full-time at what I do necessarily. I'm not suggesting we should all be part-time people at all, but have that flexibility of lifestyle to be able to do things that others can't. When we set up our peer team business, we knew that with a small staff, oftentimes we'd be traveling all over the place, especially with international operations or international sales and so forth. So many times half the people would be gone, right? Absolutely gone. So we had to set up our business to operate it from anywhere in the world at any time. And we did consciously, we set it up that way. So while we maintain office space and we have a lab and we have all these other things, the fact of the matter is there can be nobody there and we'll function just fine, okay? What that did is a few years back, my wife and I had the opportunity to take some significant time and go to Italy. So we spent a month in Italy, right? We rented an apartment in Italy, took a month. She had some job circumstances that just worked out for her, but I could do what I needed to do for peer team while in Italy, right? I could do everything I needed to from my laptop. And so having that flexibility to be able to go wherever and do whatever, to me is, the value in that is tremendous. It's absolutely tremendous that generally people who are employees of a company just don't get that flexibility, and so I think that if you've got that thirst, right, if you got that thirst for intrinsic reward and flexibility, this is a perfect line, perfect opportunity and lifestyle.
That's greatly summarized, and I think those 3 points I want to reiterate: a risk taker, what was the second one?
Entrepreneurial, somewhat entrepreneurial.
Entrepreneurial, risk taker. No, the second wasn't. Those were the same.
This notion of it. So I think it started out with entrepreneurial, somebody that could take risk, right, and do things that others couldn't do. And the third was this intrinsic motivation.
Lifestyle.
Yeah, intrinsic motivation. That it's not just about the money. It's not just about the remuneration. It's about helping people and the feeling that you get by doing that and the flexibility.